Walt Stone is an interesting character. Not only is he one who's connected to Anubis and through that connected to Sadie, he is also someone who has been cursed with a ability that will lead to his early death, hence his connection to Anubis. But there was another possibility of what his powers could have been connected to, or at least another theory. So let's dive into how Walt could have been connected to Ra. Now, I can't take full credit for this theory. This actually came from Joe from the Damn Snack Bar podcast, who I did a collaboration on my own podcast, The Best Damn Camp. It was a really interesting theory and I kind of absolutely love it, so I wanted to dive into it a little bit more. So let's go in. Now, the connection that Walt had to Anubis was mainly due to the fact that he was dying. And honestly, that never sat right with me because it felt very much like kind of a cop-out, if I'm honest, his connection to Anubis, because not only was it a way to fix the love triangle situation by kind of making them polyamorous, sorta, I don't get it. Anyway, but it only kind of really solves the curse problem a little bit. It's messy. That's all I'm going to basically go with it, which is why the idea that Joe put forward of how Walt could be connected to Ra really stuck with me because it makes a lot of sense. Now, Walt is descended from Akhenaton, who is a pharaoh who basically removed all of the beliefs of the Egyptian gods except for Aten, who is connected to Ra because Aten was the disc, or the sun disc, connected to Ra. So it was basically believing in one part of the sun, making the sun the sole belief for the followers. And that led to Akhenaton being cursed by the priests because you don't do this sort of stuff. But it is that connection to Aten, which is a part of Ra, or connected in some way to Ra and the sun, that makes this idea of Walt being connected to Ra make so much more sense. Because his ancestors were already sun-focused in their beliefs. So his magic would make sense to be connected to the sun in some way as well. Add in his abilities that we see before his connection to Anubis is literally turning things to dust. And what can the sun do? Like, if you get close to the sun, obviously no one can get close to the sun, you'll burn up and turn to ash. Ash, sun, there is a connection. Everything to do with Walt, his ancestry, his curse, and even his abilities make sense to be connected to the sun god. Ra, as he is brought back, is very, very old and is very close to death but can't die because he's a god. Walt is similar. He is always completely close to death, and each time he uses magic, he gets even closer to it. And that has been the case with his entire line. His entire line, in a sense, was probably meant to have died out a lot sooner based on this curse, but they kept on living. They kept on creating a new line. This line of the blood of the pharaohs never ended, even though the curse seemingly tried to. He never died, just like Ra. And considering that his own ancestor, in a sense, turned away from Ra and focused on one particular part of, in a sense, Ra's essence by focusing on the Aten, the disc. By having Walt be connected to Ra, I think that would have led to the curse being undone, because he is, in a sense, making up for what his ancestor Akhenaton did back in those days by turning away from Ra as the central god. By focusing his magical training as being a follower of Ra, and, helping save Ra from, Apophis, it basically brings things full circle, which would make so much more sense than randomly combining his body with Anubis. Not really to help end the curse, although it's kind of half to do with that. It's definitely more to do with Sadie, at least in this case of having Walt and Ra be connected, and have it connected to the fact that Walt is meant to be the person who helps end the curse by making up for what his ancestor did to Ra by being part of Ra. would feel so much more well-rounded and stop Sadie having more of a connection to Walt's own story. Walt deserves his own arc of a kind, and this would be a great way for that to happen. Add in to making his story a little bit better, keep him at 14. I mean, we didn't need to make him 16, there was no reason for it. The only reason that ends up being in the book is like, oh, everyone dies by the time they turn 18, or something like that. So Rick basically wanted to add some urgency of like, oh, he's going to die soon. You can still keep him at 14 and still keep the worry of him dying soon there, because the more magic he uses, the closer to death he gets to be, which is already something that's canon in the books. The more magic he uses, the more at risk he is. It could be that the curse puts someone's end of life in their early 20s instead. It's still tragic, and it also adds less of a issue with Walt's dad being like 18 when Walt's born and then he dies, because that's quite young. And then makes me question, considering how young all of them are, how young all these people were having kids. There's a lot of issues with Walt's storyline and the curse. So by having it be early 20s and have it be that basically you bring yourself closer to death by using magic, you still get the urgency of Walt's timeline speeding up to his death, but also it's still sad. Someone basically having a death sentence for their early 20s is still devastating. And the fact that Walt is kind of like, I don't care if I bring my sentence closer, I want to help save the world, still shows him as heroic and kind and compassionate, because that's what he is. Adding all these different things of sorting out the age problems and also connecting him with Ra to give him his own story and have it be that he is correcting the wrongs of his ancestors by connecting with Ra, I feel like just gives him so much more urgency outside of Sadie, because that whole Sadie situation is a mess with the age, it's a mess with the combining of her two love interests together. I just feel that, considering how cool Walt Stone is as a character, these two changes I think would have allowed him to be his own character outside of a love interest, because he deserves that, because Walt Stone is cool. But what do you guys think? Do you think these changes to Walt's story would have changed the story too much? Or do you like the idea behind them? Whatever the case, let me know in the comment section down below. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Also, let me know if there's another character in a series that you would like me to examine who could have done with a little bit of a change to their character's journey. There's definitely going to be a lot of them, so I'm intrigued to know which ones you'd like me to cover. As always, thank you all so much for tuning into this video. If you haven't followed me on my social medias, all that is in the description box down below, as well as the links to my Patreon, where if you can support me, that is the place to do so. Can't support me on Patreon? Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, because that is appreciated. And again, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.